can I just please ask you for real quiet? I really appreciate your presence, but this is an occasion where we don't want any involvement from those in the audience.
It would help, Mr. Mayor, if we could hear.
I don't want to hear you, sir. Right, I've got Councillor Penny H next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with what's been said, and I know that we have got a backup, which is to work to change the Building Act, and I think that's a very, very good backup, and I know that we've already voted on that and it's there. However, it makes sense to me that while we are going through this process, that we don't lose the sustainability element. We can always review. If this is proving to be onerous and difficult, then we can resort to the changes that hopefully we will be able to bring about in the Building Act. But in the meantime, we actually need to be building places that are good to live in, and for me this is the belts and braces that makes that happen. So I'm very happy I won't be supporting the deletion of these, and I hope that we will move to having another crack at reintroducing them. And should Councillor Fletcher's recommendation be defeated, I'm very happy to move the reinsertion of those clauses.
Okay, now we've got a section 32 to back this up, haven't we?
We have indeed.
Good. Right, because I don't want to, we won't be adjourning. So we basically need to have the section 32 now here.
We can rely on the section 32
That we put
information presented as part of our case.
Very good. Right, so next I've got Councillor Wayne and then Councillor Chris. Councillor Chris.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second Councillor.
Yeah, no, I've got that.
Okay. Yep.
Very
I
good.
also want to speak strongly to this. If ever there was an area where we need to lift our game and we need to have quality and we need to look after the people that are going to be living in this growing city, this is certainly one of them. It goes to health, it goes to having a handle on noise in intensive developments, it goes to energy saving, it goes to warmth, it goes to the health of our children, especially babies and people that are in need because they need to live in warm environments. It goes to access to lights. It goes to economy and living in homes that are more affordable from a day-to-day living sense in terms of the cost of your power and so many things. It goes to conserving water across a city where we are going to be in need of more water, and we desperately need to conserve. And importantly, it goes to quality against a background where we have faltered and we have had enormous numbers of leaky homes and buildings that are substandard, and I have the fear that we will continue to build homes that are not up to it. So this is one of the few tools that we have to go some way to providing a better Auckland, and that need is urgent because we know that we are embarking on arguably the most significant building exercise that we've had in Auckland for many, many years. So if ever there was a time to make sure that those new homes are up to standard, are high quality, economical to live in, good for our kiddies and our older people and everyone to grow up in, then this is it.
Okay, now, councillors, I've had 3 speak against. Is there anyone who wants to speak for? Okay, that's good.
Got a question.
Just hang on.
Councillor Holt didn't speak against.
Yes, she did. I think she was
did.
very clearly speaking against. Perhaps you're not used to it, Councillor Meyer, but it was definitely a speaking against and strong support, I know. So, we've got, I've got Councillor Chris and Councillor Ross, but I presume you're speaking against, so I need someone to speak for.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, you can ask a question, so we'll have that now.
So just some confusion here. There's a suggestion that we can rely on the building code, and then the report says we can rely on the Building Act. Can you just tell us the difference between the two? That's my first question. And is there any hint whatsoever, considering that 2 government departments lodged a submission against this particular section of our work. Is there any suggestion that government is proposing to review either the code or the Act, or the Home Improvement Regulations 1947?
So in terms of, I think the word building code, building act tends to have been used slightly interchangeably, so which is why the recommendation that you've already passed talks about the Building Act and associated regulations, so it covers all of those areas. I do not have any knowledge that at this time central government is intending to review the Building Act or any other associated regulations or acts. I suppose what the recommendation you've already passed is about advocacy, and I think the Mayor has already talked about the fact that Auckland tends to be at the forefront of getting innovation at central government, and so what we would be looking to do is advocate to central government about the urgent need to review all of the regulation around buildings, because not only of these issues that have been raised, but because of other issues that our consenting has identified with multi-units and more intensive living. So it's certainly on the, the work plan to do that advocacy, but at this moment I can't say whether they're already looking at it.
And one of the areas sustainable design is mentioned is in the 1947 housing regulations, which is 60, I'm not going to do the numbers, it's 60 plus years old. So there's not even a hint from government of actually reviewing those regulations, which is what the IHP are relying on here. And my other question is not the building code a minimum standard? That's the base minimal standard? It's not an optimal standard. Is that correct?
So you're correct. The building code does set the minimum standards that are required, which is why, as John has alluded to, the legal case that we were pushing for sustainable design was not about the minimums. It was about ensuring that Auckland people had warm and safe homes. These rules do not apply to the issues around leaky buildings, etc. Those are still dealt with under the building code. It was more about sustainable features within a home, about things that made it either warmer or potentially over the long term cheaper to run. But they weren't covering all facets of the issues that we've had in the past with buildings. Those aspects still sit squarely with the building code. And in terms of whether or not they're looking at reviewing that other legislation, I can't say either, I'm sorry.
Briefly, Mr Mayor, I think we should be retaining topic 77. We've lost the design statements, members. Remember,
Yeah, Councillor Chris, you are going to ask a question, otherwise you're out of order, so nice try. Right, I've got Councillor Linda C and then Councillor Penny.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. And it'd be very easy to take the acceptance of the IHP's recommendation as not having a regard to sustainable practice, but I don't believe that it is. You do have the building codes, and there is definitely need to be a step up in those sustainability features, but as Mrs Pirrott has said, this is not about leaky homes, which everybody keeps throwing into the mix. It's not about that. This is about, for me, is around down to affordability, and we've talked about that a lot. And we've taken out the retained affordability, so we need to make sure that we've got other measures that help whoever's building the homes, whether they be the public or private sector building, have options to keep the costs as low as possible while still providing a good home. And so this is one of the factors that will make it difficult. There's a lot of compliance issues around getting a Green Star rating that adds to the cost. And so for me, if we're looking at the staff's reasons for acceptance, we do need the next 18 months to 2 years to see how this goes. It's the converse of what was said by the Deputy Mayor around put it in and then take it out if it doesn't work. Well, we can see how this goes for the next 18 months. If it's not working, we'll do another plan change and we can put it in. But I also think that we're providing a different threshold in one part of the country. We'd have a higher threshold in Auckland than we do in other parts of the country. And is that going to really encourage people to come and want to build here, where we really desperately need more houses, and we know we do? That's the whole reason for doing this. So, for me, I want to accept the staff's recommendation. I think we need to move on, let the building sector get on with it, the public and the private sector, because we're involved as well as community housing providers, and we want to make sure that they can actually do this in a way that doesn't add extra costs to the end user, who is the person that's going to buy the home. So that's my reason for supporting this recommendation. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Penny W.
Well, Councillor Cooper basically said what I was going to say, but...
Just back it up.
Don't need to repeat.
So I will back it up. But I mean, it's very interesting that on Friday we had the debate on affordable housing. And those people that seem to be supporting putting this back in are those same people that want affordable housing. The more you put more regulations that builders and developers have to go through, actually ends up on the end user, which is the home buyer. So I find it fascinating sometimes.
Ironic.
Sitting here.
Very good.
By division.
Mr. Chair.
I haven't finished yet. Yeah, just hang on, Councillor. So now I've got batting order Councillor Ross, then Chris, who can actually come in with a speech now. Councillor Fletcher, did you want to speak?
I was going to
You've already moved up?
exercise my right of reply.
That's it. Your right to speak in support of your resolution. Councillor Ross.
I can't support this and won't be supporting it, but I would actually appeal to the mover and the seconder to see whether if we can just have a second recommendation in there, which would be an amalgamation of the staff comments on page 23 and 24, meaning A and C in particular, because that would then send a signal to LG, Local Government New Zealand, and also other councils, and there are other councils definitely interested in this sustainability, to actually try and get together on a united front of advocacy. So I'm just wondering if something could be tacked on.
Oh, right. Councillor Ross, just looking at page 24, I think we actually passed the issue relating to the chief exec.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. We did that.
last week.
So that
So
covers off that part of it.
What did that say?
5.8.2.
Just have a look at page 24. The Auckland Development Committee requests, well, it's us, requests the Chief Executive Officer advocates for changes to the Building Act, associated regulations to achieve improved sustainable design outcomes.
Is that tight enough to try and get other councils? Because the key thing is the government will listen when there are a lot of other councils wish to get associated with that. Because there is a bit of an anti-Auckland thing out there.
They love us, Jeffers.
Doesn't just LGNZ go in, that's unspoken in there, it's just advocating a whole lot of people.
I feel as though this is going to go through, even though I vote against it, but I'm just trying to give a bit more oomph to our ability to go to the government, that's all.
I think that clause actually probably gives us wide enough discretion. It's just not the government, it's LGNZ. Both Penny and I sit in the council, so we can raise it as a separate matter anyhow.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly I can't move an amendment to something I'm not going to vote for, so I won't.
No, okay.
We've passed it.
Councillor Chris?
Yeah, look, just thanks, Mr Mayor, for the opportunity. Members, we lost the design statements. This is an opportunity to actually hold on to something. We discussed this a lot in the build-up over the last 4 years. We all thought it was important. I never heard dissent around the table. I'm just suggesting that we go back to our original position, our closing position at the hearing. There's some mention here today of added cost. The building code requires a structure, a building, to last 50 years. It's got to endure 50 years. It's not about the cost of buying it on day one. It's a very much of a New Zealand disease focusing on the purchase day one. You've actually got to look at what it costs to operate that building for 50 years. If that building is built with deficient materials. Okay, there might be code, but that's the base minimum. We're looking at an optimal solution here, and it's not a gold-plated solution by any means. And it's around things like extraction, water efficiency, energy, materials efficiency, and the list goes on. But it actually all adds to lower cost in the OPEX of that residential home over the 50 years life expectancy. That's how it adds up. If you go to the panel's report to us, it only talks about one cost, the cost on day one. It does not talk about the cost benefit, and it does not talk about non-price benefits or non-price costs. It doesn't stack up. The reasons are deficient, and I think we should be going back to our original position.
Yep, thank you. Now, I have got Councillor Chris who wanted to speak. Councillor Dick,